righty, sports fans, welcome on in. It's the Down and Dirty here on YouTube. So glad that you could be a part of my day and mine, part of your day. Always fun to bring stuff to you. This is an exciting day. The conference championship games were yesterday. Fascinating. Lots of insight. I think a lot of questions, maybe some concerns, things about, is this the best experience that we could possibly get? We'll find out. All right, let's get into it, though. I thought this was fascinating. And one of the things, the question was Jarrett Stidham, could he come into the game and could he, be up to the moment? Could he rise to the occasion? Early on in the game, it certainly looked like that was the case. And then everything changed. And boy, it started dumping snow in Denver, and it just made the conditions almost brutal. And it was a situation where, you're trying to find offense if you're the Broncos, and running the football was kind of a challenge. Maybe they should have done more of running the football. But it appeared to me that Jarrett Stidham just didn't quite have the experience to deal with the conditions. And really his only option was, well, let's just throw a go ball and see if we make something happen. Of course, he had the interception late in the game. Watching the game, there was a guy coming across the field and looked like he was a better option in that situation. They're playing a soft, kind of two shell, and the corner's playing way back. I mean, he's right there to make the play on the ball. And it's also one of those things where, where the heck are you throwing it in that situation? And again, they just one of those things. And this isn't a knock on Jarrett Stidham. I just really think that he could have, he just was put in an impossible situation. And then when the weather came into things, it made it even more impossible. It was, it's like, gosh, this guy's getting his opportunity, and let's just make it even extremely worse than it possibly is. It clearly got into a situation where neither team was really doing anything that really, I don't think they could do anything, which brings me to a point that really bugs me. And, people are going to argue this, whatever, but I just think weather should be gone away with in the NFL. When they have Super Bowls, they purposely put Super Bowls in areas where late in, you're now almost into February. You are into February when they're playing this game. And weather just, I don't think, should factor into these playoff games. I don't know that the game with the Broncos and the Patriots ends up being that game. Maybe, it felt like that both teams were kind of struggling, but I don't know how good. I don't know if the conditions, if they had been different, would have bode better for Denver. I think it would have given them a better opportunity to win the game. Now everyone's going to say, well, everyone has to play in the same conditions, and I'm like, yeah, that's great, but I don't want to watch it. I want to sit there and watch two teams struggle in the snow, and where it shouldn't be that way. It's like, let's see who's really the best team under the best of circumstances. I don't care for the weather in those situations. I think every NFL game, every NFL surface, every NFL environment should be exactly the same. So many teams are going to these controlled climate stadiums. The Raiders play on grass. A lot of these teams play on grass inside. It's doable. Grass seems to be the preferred surface of everyone playing. So let's put the surface kind of a non-factor in games across the board, every single game in the NFL. I don't want to watch the weather. I really don't. It doesn't excite. I mean, you think of the fans, it's a miserable experience for the fans. The NFL is a great game. It's in a great place. I love what's happened in the playoffs, but man, the last couple of weeks, the weather has just really had a significant impact on games and outcomes. And I'm not sure the very best team actually gets to win in those situations. So I hope, I wish, I want, whatever, that the NFL would change it. They do it for the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is important enough. We got to have weather. Of course, they want all the fans to go and have a great experience, because most of them aren't necessarily fans. They're corporate type of people, or they're whatever. Again, I mean, that's most of the people in the stadium for the regular season game. So if it's good enough for the Super Bowl to be done in good climate, and with the amount of money that's going on in the NFL today, I don't understand at all why they can't construct stadiums, new stadiums. Maybe it's like everyone says, well, we got to have electric cars by this, there's a mandate for compliance, whatever it is. That should be the mandate for compliance in the NFL is you have a stadium that's climate controlled. And look, I love the outdoor side of it, and have they have these stadiums that are indoor, outdoor, whatever. Make it make it available to be outdoors, even if it's a colder climate stadium. Fine, but that to me just wasn't really enjoyable, and it was almost to a point where I just don't even want to watch this. I feel so sorry for these players. Can't hold on to the ball, can't really move, can't really do anything. And who wants to watch that? I mean, they just don't. Now, there's uh, there's a lot of interesting things I think that kind of jump out at me with these games. And I don't want to. I'm not really here to break down the games and whatever in some in-depth manner, but I think there's some things that always stand out to me above anything else. Drake May, and this is what I'm just going to say what I love the most about these games. Drake May had a smile on his face at the very end of the game when the Patriots, they knew they were going to the Super Bowl. All he had to do was kneel down, and he had, he might have had one or two plays left, but he knew he was going to the Super Bowl. And the thing that I just absolutely loved the most was that smile. And you saw that the same thing with the Seattle and the players, and it's like all of a sudden the game's in hand, and they go, "Yep, we got this." The Puka didn't get out of bounds, and that was ball game, and it was over, and everyone goes, "Yep," and just what an exciting thing, and it's a thing that I absolutely love more than anything in the playoffs. Now, the thing that I think I also love the most is the whole do or die nature of what's actually going on, where it's like every play, every mistake, everything that goes on in the game is just absolutely magnified. And so much of it is because you as the game goes on, that's over. Like there isn't next week, there's nothing else. So, the turnovers, the muff punts, the missed throws, the decisions to go for it on fourth down, all the little plays in the game, they're not just throwaway plays. And you feel it in the moment. You go, ooh, it just tightens the tension on things just closer in those situations where that's critical. And every play is critical. And it's just fascinating to watch how people handle the bigness of all of these situations. It's just fascinating to me, and to see how, because you go, man, and I think it would drive you nuts as a coach, a player, a fan, whatever. You go, if we only had done this, if we had only done that, and you feel it in the moment. You feel this sense of, oh, that was a big moment, that was a big play, that was just a really tough situation right there, and that could be a huge factor in who wins and loses this game. But it's almost every play, every moment is like so critical. You look at the game with the Rams and the Seahawks, and you go, kick the field goal at the end of the game, just kick the field goal. And then, because then you don't have to get like a touchdown. You just have to get, all you have to do is get a field goal. And I'm sure it's like one of those things, and I want to get into this, where it's this process of, the mentality when you play. This mentality of, man, we're going for it. We're going for it. And there's a lot of this mentality of this fourth down decision, and it's shown up consistently throughout the playoffs. And everyone talks about these analytics, and it really feels like, it's worked. It worked for the Patriots. It didn't work for the Broncos. It didn't work maybe for the Rams, but it's worked for, it's just kind of, it's one of those tough things. And I think it would drive you nuts as a head coach to go, when to do it, when to not do it. And I think in the past, they really rely on these analytics and because in the past it's kind of a coach's gut feeling kind of thing. And you think of Sean McVay in the Super Bowl when he onside kicked to start the second half, those kind of intuitive gut decisions to do stuff like that. Of course, the kickoff has changed that rule right now, but it's just fascinating to me, this mindset, right? And so here you have Sean McVay, and we don't have a quote other than Erin Andrews reported on the sideline that in her discussion with Sean McVay during the week, he talked about playing with courage, and this whole idea of courage and how we're going to play, with this courage and really go for it. We understand the challenge of playing in Seattle, and it really, I don't think it was an impact on the game. It's an incredible crowd, but when you have an opponent that's familiar and very familiar with you, I think that hostility isn't as much of an impact as it would for an opponent that maybe doesn't experience that or hasn't experienced that often. And you got a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, that's not going to rattle his cage or anything. But the thing about this courage, and this is what kind of threw me with this whole, this mindset, right? We're going to go for it. We're courage. And then his comment was, and then we'll just see what happens, and we'll live with that. And I love the mindset, but I think it was limiting, and I think it was like, no, we're going to play courageously and win this game. And I think that because that's what it felt like. It felt like, yeah, the Rams are they're trying hard, but it just seemed like they're always chasing. And that's a really hard thing in a game when you feel this, because it didn't feel like the Rams defense had any answer for the Seahawks. And maybe that's the reason why you go for it late in the game, because you're like, I don't know that our defense has really stopped anyone or can stop anyone. And who knows, maybe late in the game because the percentages eventually are going to fall in your favor. You're going to be able to hopefully stop them at some point, which they didn't. But I just this whole mindset of, I don't know that they had the confidence necessarily if you really ask them internally to win the game, the Rams. I think they maybe had, and you got to remember the Rams have been all over the country and then some. And there is fatigue there. And I think that has an impact, and it might have had an impact on their defense. And maybe it's a little easier for your defense to get juiced up and get excited and get emotional when you're home. And when you're constantly, on the road and you just don't have the juice. And I'm not using an excuse, because I think everyone was committed to it's just something that happens. And every day we just aren't at our very best. And there are external circumstances that impact our performance. And I think fatigue from travel, being on the road like that, plays into the game. And I think it played into it to some degree. But I also, this whole thought of courage and living with the results, it's like, it just doesn't feel like it's this, I have a tremendous amount of confidence in that we're going to win the game. And the thing that also stands out to me about these games, and it's another fascinating concept or just circumstance that comes up from playing these games. There's this fine line. So I'm talking about this whole idea of courage with these coaches, and you're constantly like trying to push the envelope, and even the taunting call that gave the Rams the first down, and everyone's like, man, you idiot, what are you doing in that situation? And it's really so dumb. And yet there's other circumstances where we like the passion, we like the engagement, we like some of the greatest players ever in the history of the NFL are the biggest trash talkers in the world. Like trash talking is not, it's not a bunch of choir boys sitting out there going, oh yeah, and everyone says, oh, this is a dumb situation, how could you do it? And I'm probably one of them, but the reality is trash talking goes on. and you get in these one-on-one battles and you're in this close proximity when the defensive backs and the wide receivers are going at each other the whole game, and you're trying to get inside the other guy's head, and you're trying to also build yourself up and give yourself some confidence when you're in these circumstances. And so, eh, eh, you know, I'm not like, oh, you can't ever say anything. And this is that fine line of pushing, um, the limits of, like, what's within the rules and what isn't. So you see these pass interference calls, or you see guys go off sides, or you see guys, whatever it might be, just some kind of penalty, some kind of situation. And I think it's one of those, especially in these big games, these fine lines, like where are we walking the line? How are we playing as a team? Are we on the edge? Are we on the other side of, maybe a little bit out of control, maybe a little bit, of, we're just this go for it mindset, or it's like playing to win as opposed to playing not to lose. Because I think this playing not to lose in the game against, the Patriots and the Broncos might have been, and I think it was, the best strategy, where Drake May and Bill Belichick says one of the great things about Tom Brady was he just didn't lose the game. He just didn't give you the game. He didn't throw the ball. It didn't, bad interceptions, dumb decisions. He just let you do that. And so that's this fine line that I'm talking about. But there's also this ability when it's on the line, when you really have to have a play, there has to be this willingness to just go for it and just let something whatever it might be. It's those big plays. It's those big plays for those players, in the big moments, but it's also not losing the game. And so the big play for Drake May was to run the football. Like he didn't, like, he won that game for the Patriots running the football. And he throws the ball pretty well. But in that circumstance, in that situation, that line, it's like, don't lose the game right here. And they talked to him about that because he has been turning the ball over a lot. And everyone's like, well, does that stifle a player? Because then you're playing it too close to the vest. And so this fine line is just a fascinating part to me. And then you go in the game, in the NFC, and Sam Darnold very early on in this game, and they have the third down and in a short situation, and he throws an incredible pass, that I think it was a touchdown, or I think he might have gotten, but it was early on in the game. Hits a big play early, and I honestly think that was the game. And I know that's early, but if you have your quarterback and he has confidence and he's playing to win and he hits a big play early, it's massively, plays into his confidence, plays into, that he's kind of gotten the ghost of the past, that he's out of his own head, that he's into it, because Sam Darnold, and everyone said, had played the best game of his career in that situation. And it was in that moment where, a lot of guys maybe don't take that shot. They don't, it's like, and I know the guy was wide open and all of that, but it's that kind of, where are you on this line, this fine line between, really going for it, but also not losing the game, because Sam Darnold didn't do anything to lose, the game. He was incredible. It was just a remarkable thing, to watch this game and watch the evolution of Sam Darnold. Because, I mean, holy cow, this was a game that I think the NFL, in its arrogance and pride, has a hard time with. I think this game, the NFL has a hard time, with this change of who are the names. You could go, oh, because they love Matthew Stafford now. I don't think they did, 5-10 years ago, before he left Detroit. He wasn't a name people go, oh yeah, we can see Matthew Stafford winning. It's taken the second half of his career to kind of get that cachet and that that respect and that relevance. but you don't have Josh Allen, you don't have Sam Darnold. Even Bo Nix was starting to develop into one of those players. The big names in the quarterback situation aren't in this Super Bowl. And a lot of it isn't in this playoffs. I mean, you look at the only guy who had really any kind of significance was Matthew Stafford. And the other guys were just, kind of whatever. And so it's fascinating to me that we have now Drake May had an incredible season. He's a guy that was picked very high, and so they liked him, and he's done a remarkable job. But he's not that household name yet, and this to me is kind of that moment, and it's to me it feels like it's a shift in the power structure in the NFL, and it always happens. I think of the coming out party of a guy like Joe Montana in the 1982 Super Bowl with Ken Anderson, and I don't think anyone said, "Oh yeah, those guys are they're household names now." Now they are now, but in that moment they weren't. A lot of people were like, and not only that, but the Super Bowl was in Detroit. It was miserable. It was frigid. A lot of people were super late to the game because it was basically a traffic jam. They were all trying to drive on what was essentially an ice rink. It was horrible conditions, terrible. And it feels like this is a kind of Super Bowl where everyone, it's all about whose dynasty, whose legacy is starting in this Super Bowl. You look at these two quarterbacks, you look at these two coaches. I mean, we haven't even talked about the coaches yet, and it's just like, Mike McDonald, where he came from, is just insane. How his evolution to becoming a Super Bowl, coach is incredible, and Mike Vrabel very similar. I think people said Mike Vrabel could be a really good coach when he out Belichick. It was like when the master says, "Take the pebble from my hand," and Vrabel did, and not only did he do it, but he really, I don't want to say surpassed, but he really kind of has answered all of the bells. And he had an interview, it was really interesting as well, and he just talked about everyone's journey to getting where they were in the NFL, and it feels like these two coaches have done a remarkable job on building expectation, building belief, building confidence, and it's been remarkable. I mean, to take Sam Darnold, who was washed up goods, like this guy was, it was bad. He was a guy that was on his farewell journey. These high draft picks who bounce around the league and they just go from team to team, and eventually they just slide away. If they don't perform early, it's like you're out, you're done. And there's so many of them that have fit that bill. There's a ton of them, and so to build that confidence, because you're that guy, you're Sam Darnold, and there's more doubt in your head than there is belief. Even when you're doing well, like when you're a guy that's like, oh, like he's 14-2 or 15-2, whatever he was with the Minnesota Vikings, and having a phenomenal year. In the back of his head, he's still like, yeah, but I've seen ghosts before, and they scared me. And it's remarkable to take someone like that and get them to the biggest sporting event in our country, and to be able to do the coaching job to do that, and also the recognition. They went out and they picked Sam Darnold. They said, "This is our guy. This is who we want." Which I again believe. Whoa, what a tremendous thing. And the same thing with Mike Vrabel taking a guy like Drake May, who's very young, going to be the second youngest quarterback to start a Super Bowl, and take him through a year when you go, when's the shoe going to fall off? When's this guy going to show his age? And he did everything he had to do, including whatever it took to win a game in the worst of conditions on the road, and get to the Super Bowl. And so it's just fascinating how these coaches have just built the confidence of these teams and what they did to do that. Now, um, I just wonder, are we ready? Um, are we ready for this? Can we handle, can we handle two unknown quarterbacks, two not household names? I mean, they're getting there, and everyone, you think about Sam Darnold, the householdness of him is, well, we'll see. And Drake May is like, yeah, I mean, he's young. It's not like, they don't go, it's just so dumb. Like it's just the dumbest thing. And so this is to me another fascinating part. So someone's legacy is going to be born, and it's going to be fascinating to see who it is. Now, speaking of quarterbacks and relevance, and this was a fascinating stat. Of course, um, they're in the 2018 class, and they showed this, and it's just so remarkable to me. There's Baker Mayfield, there is Josh Allen, there's Lamar Jackson, there is Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen. So you have Lamar Jackson, MVP, Josh Allen won more playoff games and not been to a Super Bowl. Baker Mayfield, of course, he was the first pick in the draft. He's kind of turned it around. And the first guy to go to the Super Bowl is Sam Darnold. And I think a year ago, I think at the beginning of this season, if someone was asked that question, they'd say, well, it's going to be Lamar. It could be Baker Mayfield. Look at the season, look at the turnaround that he's had. And the first one to go is Sam Darnold, which is just so funny. And I love this, by the way. I absolutely love this, but it makes me wonder how many Sam Darnolds are out there. How many Sam Darnolds did we not have the privilege of watching develop and grow, and this lack of patience, and it's also kind of getting in the right situation, with guys. You look at Zach Wilson, who was the number 2 pick for the Jets, and he's kind of on his farewell tour. He went to the Broncos. He went to the Dolphins. Is he a guy that, is it over for him? I mean, because they didn't play him in Miami. They played Quinn Ewers, and and so is he a guy? And how many of these guys are out there that, we just don't know about, and we may never know about. And I think that's a sad thing. I'm not sure how to fix it, because not every coach, not every organization, not every circumstance in the NFL is good. As a whole, the league is, but there's a lot of bad organizations that really don't understand and develop quarterbacks. Now, here's a fascinating thing for you. Sam Darnold received $500,000 for throwing over 4,000 yards, another $500,000 for 67% completion rate, $500,000 for a top 10 offense, $500,000 for a playoff berth, $500,000 for a division round win, $500,000 for a conference championship. Remarkable. I can't imagine. It's like every week it's like, yeah, here's an extra $500,000, and good for him. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, we'll pay you if you perform. And he's like, I think I did that. Well, I'm excited about the Super Bowl. I've loved the playoffs so far. I've loved all the intrigue of all these different teams and scenarios, and how everything's kind of played out. And I absolutely love it. We're going to take a break. We got a fun show, rest of the show. I got some interesting facts to bring up to you on some hot headlines. And then, of course, we have Dan Pompei. He's a Hall of Fame writer, and he's going to join the show and give us his thoughts on kind of the weekend coaches and all that fun stuff going on in the NFL when the Down and Dirty returns here on YouTube.
Tervis is all about staying hydrated with style and durability. You can trust Tervis tumblers to keep your drinks the perfect temperature, hot or cold, for hours. From the classic insulated tumblers to sleek stainless steel water bottles, each product is built to last and comes in endless designs to match your personality. Stay refreshed and express yourself with Tervis. Visit tervis.com today and find your perfect tumbler.
Hey, welcome back. It's the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here. Of course, it's the day after the conference championship, and boy, what a playoffs it's been. It's just absolutely fascinating. Clock management is, and time is your enemy. Learning how to manage clocks, I think, hurt the Rams at the end of the half against Seattle. I think it hurt Buffalo. Clearly, it hurt Buffalo against the Broncos, and difference in the game. And so often these coaches, these players understand it, but man, and again, it goes back to those whole ideas of there's a fine line, and every play matters, every minute matters in preparing and winning in a playoff game to go to the Super Bowl. All right, the funny things happening, kind of some headlines. I wanted to bring this up because I just thought this was hilarious. Coach Prime has kind of he's instituted a fine schedule, and it's almost like the NFL, because these players, now they're getting paid, and he's like, okay, you're getting paid. Well, then there needs to be some responsibility. So he's instituted a fine schedule, and it's pretty stiff. Like, they must be playing players pretty well at Colorado. So if you're late for practice, it's $500. If you don't show up to practice, it's $2,500. Does he have players not showing up to practice? Is it just like, here, I'm going to take your money and just, I mean, I had players when I was in college that didn't show up to practice. Now they were selling drugs, and they were making more money doing that than coming to practice. But that's an interest. If you're late to a meeting or a film session, $400. And no show to a meeting or film session, 2,000. Like, what? You just don't. I'm just curious if you have to institute a fine schedule, then you have recruited the wrong guys. You have picked the wrong guy. It just feels that way to me. If you late to strength and conditioning workout, $1,000. No show to a strength and conditioning workout, $1,500. Late for treatment, $1,000. No show for treatment, $1,500. And then there's violation of team rules, whatever those are, between $1,000 and $2,500. And then public or social media misconduct. Of course, social media, it can be from $2,500 to $5,000 based on the severity. And then to top it all off, Coach Prime said, we need to stop the profanity. Like, it's getting out of control, and it's ridiculous. And we're in these cafeteria, we're in these places where other people are, and it's just out of control. Now, I love the discipline part of this. I'm not mocking this at all. I'm just fascinated that it needs to be put into place. That clearly it's put in place because there are issues with this, and it's one of those byproducts, I guess, of what's happening in college sports. There is an NFL fine schedule, and it's always and it's not an even number. because it's all negotiated based on the collective bargaining agreement. So it's like $1,999.52, and it's a weird schedule. So at least he's at round numbers, so that's a good thing. Scotty Scheffler. I know this is an NFL day, and believe me, this is the only time we're not going to talk about it, but I got to talk about it because I think he's the one. He's the next generational player in golf. Of course, he got to 20 wins before 30. He won the American Express championship yesterday, and did it kind of in a yawner style. Only he, Tiger, and Jack have won 20 events before 30. And there's no other names there. And then there's one, and then Tiger, Rory, and Scotty Scheffler are at $100 million before they're 30 in career. And so it's fascinating what he's doing on the golf course. And of course, I love golf, love to follow it, love to watch it. So we talk about it from time to time. Well, we're going to take another break. We come back. We're going to talk to none other than Dan Pompei. He's a Hall of Fame voting member of the media, does an incredible job, great stories, been telling stories, has actually told my story before for 4 decades in the NFL. He's of course head writer for The Atlantic. He's going to share his thoughts on so many things. Can't wait to talk to Dan right around the corner here on the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell.
For 75 years, Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. No gimmicks, just durable, well-designed bottles built to last. Join us on our mission to amplify life, not complicate it. Because at Nalgene, what goes into our bottles matters as much as the adventures they fuel. Explore more at nalgene.com. That's NALGENE.com.
I know you're gonna love this Kodak Dot Plus printer. You guys just connect it to your smartphone, and then you're gonna use the Kodak Photo Print app. It's going to print you a 4x6 photo. I am just in awe. I love how these turned out. Also, the printer comes with a free cartridge of 10 photo sheets. I can assure you, you are going to love this printer as much as my family has. You guys have to check it out for yourself.
Welcome to Kitbag, the ultimate destination for football fans. Whether you're cheering for Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United, or any other top club, we've got your team's colors running through our veins. From official replica kits to custom player prints of your favorite stars like Ronaldo, Messi, and Kane, Kitbag is your one-stop shop for all things football. Powered by Fanatics, we deliver to over 180 countries, ensuring you get the gear you need fast. For true football passion, think Kitbag. Visit kitbag.com today. That's KITBAG.com. Kitbag.
Farmhound's approach is a little different than a traditional treat company. We get to work with local farmers who are putting everything they can into regenerative farming. From the soil to the animals to the ecosystem. They care about how animals are raised and how we treat the earth. It's not just product, but it's part of that story. It's connected to just a whole lot more.
Hey, sports fans, welcome back. It's the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on YouTube. So glad you could join us. Of like and subscribe, do all that fun stuff. But boy, we are so happy to be doing this, and I can't tell you how much it means to me that you listen. It's really fun, and we take pride in bringing you the very best of the very best. And of course, we have that now. Dan Pompei, who's been writing in the NFL for 4 decades, he's the best storyteller out there. He now is a head writer for The Atlantic, and he also is a Hall of Fame voter, one of 49 of members of the media that does that. Welcome to the show, Dan. How you doing?
Scott, it's good to be with you as always. Appreciate you having me. Obviously, a few things going on this week, right?
Yeah, just a couple. Before we get into that, I'm curious about this whole Hall of Fame voting process. What's that like for you every year?
Well, it's a process that really never stops. So I've been doing it for almost 20 years now.
Wow.
And I kind of consider myself as always kind of researching the Hall of Fame possibilities. So, whoever gets in this year, there's going to be a lot of probably really deserving guys who don't get in.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have to start thinking about them next year. And then there's going to be a new class coming up in 2027 that we have to concern ourselves with. And then there's a backlog. There's always this incredible backlog. I mean, you played with a guy, Lomas Brown, who made some strides this year, but didn't quite make the cut to the final 15. But maybe he's a guy next year that breaks through to that 15.
Yeah.
There's so many players that really deserve a good look, good consideration. And, it's our duty, our responsibility to really try to vet them as closely as we can and figure out which ones are the most deserving. Look, it's not a science, it's kind of an art. And it's not, no two people see things exactly the same way usually. Sometimes there's cases where the player is just irrefutably Hall of Fame material that you cannot deny it. When Tom Brady comes up, obviously that's, no one's going to have anything to say. But, most other players, there's a little bit of gray area. There's some holes in them, things you could pick apart a little bit. And, that's where the challenge comes in, is kind of figuring out how those holes compare with the holes of other players.
Yeah, it's a fascinating process. And, you mentioned Lomas, and Lomas was great. And, but also, Richmond Webb was another, Richmond and I came into the league together with the Miami Dolphins, and he was just so impressive. And then he got injured, and his career maybe wasn't as long. And you look at Sterling Sharp, you look at Terrell Davis, and their careers were shortened. And I think the criteria and the discussion of, how long, at what level, I'm sure it's a maddening process. And it does, as you mentioned, I hadn't really thought about it as just a constant process. It's almost like, well, I'll put it on the back burner and then deal with it, next year. But you really have to, and I'm sure you have a tremendous respect for this honor and responsibility that you have. But boy, it would just be so challenging to have to wade through all of that stuff every year.
Yeah, it's hard. You mentioned Richmond Webb. I mean, that's a guy, you look at his resume and, what don't you like about it? Exactly.
Right.
There's nothing, but the problem is there's too many players for too few spots. Yeah. And oftentimes they just kind of get overlooked. It happens more with offensive linemen, I think, and some defensive players, some safeties, defensive players who don't have stats, linebackers who aren't pass rushers, maybe defensive tackles, that kind of thing. You played a lot probably against Kevin Williams, didn't you? With the Vikings? Yeah. He was a guy who this year broke through to the final 15 for the first time. And, really interesting resume he's got too, that he had just about everything you want, but really, hasn't gotten this far yet. We'll see where he goes now.
Yeah. Fascinating process. All right. Your thoughts on yesterday's games? What really stood out to you? What really kind of pushed your buttons?
Well, I think I know everyone likes to see games in the elements, but I would have loved to have seen that game, the AFC Championship game, played in conditions that didn't completely overwhelm the performances, because I think that's what happened, and no one really kind of knew what was coming. I think, hey, if Sean Payton knew what was in store for the second half, would he have changed his strategy in the first half and kicked a field goal? I think he probably would have. But I'm speculating on that. But it's unfortunate it came to that. But all credit to the Patriots who found a way to win, in every road game this year. With first team in history that's ever done that. You talk about a resourceful, gritty group, well coached, that just maximizes everything that it's got and kind of finds a way to skirt around whatever weaknesses they have. I mean, all credit there. And I think, in the second game, two rivals that know each other as well as any two teams in the league, just slugging it out. And, I think that was a great representation of what the NFL should be at this time of year in that kind of game. And, it's great to see, a coach like Mike McDonald going to Seattle, kind of overhaul that team. John Schneider takes a chance on a quarterback that was let go by the Vikings after a great season, and ends up doing enough to beat Matthew Stafford on a day when Matthew Stafford had it.
Yep.
So it was a good Sunday overall.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned the weather. It just seems to me, because I watch, I'm just like, it's almost unwatchable, and you just have to wonder, with so many careers on the line, with how much the game means, it just feels like they should do a better job of that. And I'm a proponent of, I think it should be mandatory in the NFL. Every playing surface, every stadium should be climate controlled, and they have the money, they have the resources. You want to have a retractable roof, fine, but create conditions that don't favor anyone really, and that's where I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought up these coaches, because it's one thing to coach, it's another thing to just get people to buy into and believe what you do. And I think these two guys did it better, than anyone in the NFL, and so quickly. And it's fascinating how belief and mindset have such an impact on the game. I'm curious, do you think the NFL got it right this year? Do you think these are the two best teams? Are these the ones that really deserve to be in the Super Bowl, or are there other teams that maybe should have been there?
Well, I think, clearly given where these teams and every other team was in January, these are the teams that deserve to be there. Were they the best teams on paper going into the season? Absolutely not.
Right. Yeah.
Not close, I don't think. But things change. Some players didn't play as well as they should on other teams. Some key players get hurt. Patrick Mahomes goes down. I mean, so many things happen in the course of the season that were unpredictable, unexpected. And this is how, I don't think, I'd be shocked if 10 years from now, we're looking back at the 2025 Patriots or Seahawks and saying, that was one of the great all-time teams.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're going to stack up that way. But, they were teams that did what they had to do to get where they were, and took advantage of whatever soft spots there were in the league in other cities. So, I think the other thing, you mentioned the coaching. I was talking with a former general manager the other day who said he wasn't sure that he ever remembers a season in the league where there were more great coaching jobs done.
Yeah.
And it really, it resonates when you look. I had a vote for Coach of the Year after the regular season, and it was a tough vote. I can't. We're not supposed to reveal our votes, but you look at Vrabel, obviously. You look at Liam Cohen in Jacksonville. Sean Payton certainly had a good chance for that. You look at even. Everything's the perspective has changed now because some of these teams lost in the playoffs. But Ben Johnson in Chicago. Yeah. You look at Dave Canellis even in Carolina. Certainly Mike McDonald, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. There were just some outstanding jobs done this year.
Yeah, I was thinking about that yesterday, and I've thought, I've talked about it on the show before, and I agree. It's just been remarkable. It almost feels like what I thought about yesterday was they should have coach of the year this year, and it should be Vrabel and McDonald. It's just incredible where they've come from, what they've done, and they've done it, I think, in very convincing fashion. But they gave MVPs in the Super Bowl with the Cowboys in '77. They should do it this year with coaches. That's my view. Speaking of coaches, the Browns have implemented some rather unusual strategies or processes of evaluating coaches. Is that ever going to lead them to a new head coach?
Well, I think a lot of the candidates they keep bringing in tell them, no, thanks, I'm not interested. And can you blame them?
No.
No, I wouldn't want to be their head coach either. But eventually someone will say yes. They will find someone who is desperate enough, who feels like they can't get another job. But it's a rough organization. I mean, you look at their history, unless you see some reason to believe that they're going to make some radical change in the way that they run that team from the top down. It's not a place that's very attractive to many coaching candidates, and clearly that's showing in the process now.
Speaking of coaching candidates, I know we're limited on time here a little bit, but you have Harbaugh to New York, Mike McCarthy to Pittsburgh, Jesse Minter to Baltimore, and Stefanski to Atlanta, Halfley to Miami. Any of those names kind of jump out at you as like either, I'm not too sure about it, or that was really good?
I kind of liked all of them. I mean, the one I guess that I have some questions on was Halfley to Miami, just because I didn't think the Packers defense was spectacular given the talent they had, A, and B, his record as a head coach at Boston College was middle of the road. But that being said, I don't know Jeff Halfley, and I don't know obviously one guy who knows him is John Eric Sullivan, the general manager of the Dolphins, and he obviously was very impressed with him, having worked with him in Green Bay. So, I think he obviously has a feel for what his potential could be in terms of doing things that maybe the rest of us haven't seen him do. But that was the one that they moved quickly too. I'm a little surprised that Sean McDermott is apparently not even getting an interview at this point,
right,
unless he's turned down. It's possible he turned down a chance to talk with whomever, the Browns or the Raiders. But you talk with a good record. I mean, for him not to get anything, it's kind of crazy. And Scott, if you want to go another 5 minutes or so, I'm good. If you have a chance to do that.
Yeah, I didn't have much more than that, but
okay.
But I want to hear more about like Mike McCarthy and Harbaugh. Kind of what your thoughts on? Was Harbaugh just kind of a no-brainer? Was he the cream of the crop this year? And you think that was a really good situation for him to go into New York?
Yeah, to me, I think he was, and I think that's a really good match. I think you talk about a guy who, it's one thing to have success in the NFL. It's another thing to have sustained success, and to be able to kind of do it with different teams, different eras, different assistant coaches. That, I think, speaks a lot to your leadership and your ability to establish culture and your ability to grow and evolve. And I think he's done all of that. And I think the Giants are a place that will bring out the best in him and, foster even more growth from him. McCarthy, I know there's some mixed feelings on him.
Yeah.
I've always thought he's a pretty good coach myself. And I think I saw an interesting statistical table online where they compared his accomplishments, his records to John Harbaugh's, and they're almost identical.
Yeah.
It's funny, we get skewed sometimes and think, well, he wasn't that good that last year in Dallas. But, if you look at the totality of what he's done, it has been pretty good. I think he'll be a good fit in that culture too, being a Pittsburgh guy, who spent some time at University of Pittsburgh and knows the lay of the land. So I think he'll be good too. Stefanski, I like Stefanski. You talk about a two-time Coach of the Year who obviously had, I think, a difficult situation as we kind of touched on earlier there in Cleveland. He dealt with the whole Deshaun Watson situation, and it was kind of no win. But I think if the Falcons can support him in a way that the Browns did not, you could see the Falcons as a team that take off too, assuming that Michael Penix is the real deal at quarterback, and they're able to continue to add to that team talent-wise.
Yeah, if you can win in Cleveland anyway, somehow, it certainly feels like you deserve maybe more than Coach of the Year. Well, I like Pittsburgh only because of the patience of the organization with their coaches, and they're not so quick to jump off of guys. And you look at Sam Darnold and kind of his career, where it's been quite a journey, and I think there's still this question mark of people. Yeah, but when is Sam Darnold going to see ghosts again? Or he just kind of unfortunately has that reputation. Are there guys, and if there are, how many do you think there are guys that maybe didn't get an opportunity or were a limited opportunity that could have had so much more in their career had they got in the right situation? Or is Sam Darnold just kind of an outlier, and he's just a guy that was actually really good, and he just needed to find the right spot?
No, I don't think he's an outlier. I think, hey, how would your career have been different if you had been in a situation where you were fostered by a coaching staff over a period of years, stayed in the same offensive system, had the same players around? I mean, that matters,
Yeah.
I think Baker Mayfield is another example of a guy who, was in a dysfunctional situation, and all of a sudden he goes to a place where, they're doing good things around him, and all of a sudden he takes off in Tampa. I'm drawing a blank on the 49ers backup this year, who was another guy who was like that too, who came on after washing out with another team and then had some success with the 49ers.
Mac Jones.
Mac Jones, yes.
Yeah.
So
or Daniel Jones, for that matter.
Daniel, I forgot about Daniel Jones. Yeah. Great example of it. So, I mean, it has a lot to do with patience and structure and coaching and offensive system and players around. I mean, the other thing about Darnold, look, so he struggled with the Jets. He goes to the Vikings. He's thrown to Jay Jetta. Now he's thrown to JSN. I mean, that means something too, right? I mean, you get to throw the ball to a guy who's one of the best pass catchers, route runner, both of them in the NFL and maybe ever, and that's going to make you a better quarterback.
You asked me how often I think about my career and what it would have been, and how it would have been more enhanced. And I think about that a lot of times at 3 o'clock in the morning, actually. Now, I've actually come, I have Herman Moore on the show from time to time. We have some great conversations. I had Tom Moore recently, and we talked a lot about those times. And, Herman and I were just like, oh, if we could only just kept Tom Moore around and that system we had in Detroit, what that would have looked like. But it wasn't to be, and it's all good now because I'm an old man, and it's just fun to talk about it. I really appreciate your time today. You're wonderful. Everyone go, because I read all your stuff and you just do such a great job. So go check out Dan Pompei at the Athletic. He's the best around. And thanks for your time today, and have a great day.
Many thanks, Scott. Have a good day.
All right. There you have it. Dan Pompei, of course, he's a great writer, been doing it in the NFL for a long, long time. And he really is. He's just he's top shelf. He gets it right. So that's all we have for the Down and Dirty today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, like and subscribe, do all that fun stuff. I hope you have a wonderful day. We're going to keep bringing this stuff to you every single day. So stick around. Until then, we'll see you then.